the action.
So looking at these deck lists, I think Applechips is wanting to be a bit more aggressive and play to the board more because uh, the Overmaster has 4 copies of the Speaking Circle,
Mm-hmm.
which Applechips isn't playing any of, and if the game goes late, that site takes over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, we've already seen a little bit of that site today, and it seems pretty good. I know even in spoiler season, people were talking about how strong that card might be. We've seen it today, and hopefully we get to see that again here because that card can definitely take over the game. All right, Overmaster, you got 2 power in hand. They've got an exploit, a Roland, and a backbreaker. So not much early going on, but they've got the exploit and then some big cards here to follow up with.
Exploit your exploit.
Exploit your exploit, right? All right, Battlemaster coming down for Applechips and another Roland off the top. It looks like Applechips' hand is a Blazing Salvo and a Know Thy Enemy and 3 power.
Salvo can get Salvo Applechips' market is mostly removal spells. Uh so oddly enough, the Overmaster being influence screwed is uh kind of helping them because Applechips won't really be able to do much these next few turns. There's nothing for them to answer. And and if you look at the Overmaster's influence so far, they only have 2 justice.
Mm-hmm.
Without petition in the format, Roland's a lot harder to play on time.
That's true. Although a Silex off the top plus a Justice Original hand is going to allow them to deploy it on turn 5 if they would like, but definitely a turn behind. Drawing a Suffocate from the Treasure Trove. Another Know Thy Enemy for Applechips. They've got 2 Know Thy Enemy in hand. Which isn't really going to do much on this board.
No, they'd be just getting rid of their Cataxias. Uh,
Okay, Keepsake off the top for the Overmaster.
yeah, they're just gonna do that. I guess they would rather be digging for something than playing a Roland, which is smart. Like, if you're not under any pressure, why play out a threat that they can
Mm-hmm.
answer?
It's true. Hammer Authority and then Tavrod here for Overmaster. They're going to deploy that Roland now and then follow up with a Suffocate to make sure that they get a Valkyrie. It's a nice sequencing there. Heavy Artillery draw for Applechips, which is the 5/1 relic weapon with Overwhelm. We'll see it here.
And Cataxias is helping. Oh, wait, oh no, Cataxias doesn't give the weapon itself +1/+1.
Right. So each weapon in your deck will get its battle skills and +1/+1, but it doesn't actually increase that artillery, unfortunately. So they can't take down the Roland. I mean, trading your 5/1 weapon for a 1/1 isn't always what you want to do, but you got the trigger off of it. There's Overmaster, though, is going to use that hammer to make another Valkyrie, take out the Minotaur, and attack with Roland. And we see a tower as well.
Chips doesn't really have many ways to get back into this game.
And they
Know
don't.
thy enemy.
The double Know Thy Enemy in hand plus 2 power, they really don't have anything going on. And Know Thy Enemy doesn't really look great in this matchup.
Is you can hope for getting maybe 2 Tavrods here off of no. I wouldn't even. This needs to be a big Know thy enemy.
There you go. Okay. Here's a Tavrod. All right. got 2 units there. That'll keep them around.
Too bad those didn't come out in the opposite order because that would have made Tavrod even bigger.
Hmm. Lots of options here for Overmaster. They're going to go ahead and pump up their Roland to an 8/8.
They're thinking about just trading that in,
Mm-hmm.
giving Applechips less choices.
Yep. Yeah, going to make a Valkyrie, take out the unit, get rid of any sort of block that they were going to set up here.
Probably just play out another Tavrod after attacking. Playing Exploit is tempting, but Tavrod uses your power more efficiently,
Mm-hmm.
puts another big threat on the board.
Mm-hmm. Well, at this point, are you smelling blood in the water and just trying to end the game as soon as possible now?
Yeah. Oh,
Gonna fire off that exploit. Gonna see not much in hand. Gonna take the other know thy enemy. Although did get an Inquisitor's Halberd, a 9/2 overwhelm weapon there. And see what they get off Treasure Trove. Ooh, and they got a heavy artillery off of the Treasure Trove. Okay, that's gonna take out the Tavrod. That'll get rid of the biggest, or the Roland. I'm sorry. That'll get rid of the Roland, the biggest threat on the board. But 2 Tavrods still in hand for Overmaster. And they're going to put Applechips down to 6. Follow up with another Tavrod.
so without a pause there, I think they had lethal with the backbreaker. Slag could have punished them, but without salvo stop, I don't
Mm-hmm.
think there was anything there that could have stopped that.
Applechips going to take the backbreaker. Fire off the first treasure trove and see heavy artillery.
Relic weapons really aren't that great when you're low on life.
Yeah, that is true. And they're going to play the 9/2 weapon. Take out one of the Valkyrie. But they're not in great shape here. Equalize. Useful, but not really at this stage in the game what Overmaster wants. But that's just going to do it. Overmaster going to take game 1 over Applechips. Just too much beef there for Applechips to handle. And those Know Thy Enemy, great card, but awkward, I would say, in that matchup there with how much big beef Overmaster was putting out. All right, so that's going to
Yeah,
be first game 1-0 so far for Overmaster.
I think that could have gone a lot differently if there was uh, a Linux or an Aegean early on.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Normally, you see the uh, 3-faction version of a deck winning the mirror because it goes a little bigger, but uh, this time it's kind of the opposite uh, because of how the decks are built. Uh,
Roland stood out so far. We've seen Roland a couple times. Not that that's a new card. Obviously, we're familiar with it. But in the games that we've seen Roland in hand so far, it's been pretty dominant, pretty much decided on the board, determined what was going to happen and what answers the opponent was going to have. Is that one of the? Is that would you consider that one of the big build around cards for Expedition right now?
yeah, Roland is one of the big reasons uh, to be in these factions.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just an incredible rate, hard to answer unit that takes over the board. if it lives. It makes combat a nightmare because if you let anything of yours die while your opponent has a Roland, you're
Mhm.
not going to have good attacks for a while. Um, and we also don't see a ton of answers in either of these decks for a Roland. There's Suffocate in the Overmaster's deck and Edict of Kodash in the market, and in Applechips' deck, they just have a market Edict of Kodash.
Mhm. All right, so ready for game 2 here. Not a good looking hand for Overmaster. Definitely going to toss that one back. This one's a little better. I think they'll keep this. Suffocate, Exploit, Deathwing, and an Equalize here. They don't have their beef, but that's okay. They've got their early game interaction, and then hopefully the plan would be to draw the beef later on.
Yeah, this is a pretty great hand for the Overmaster. They're probably just going to fire off an Exploit next turn. This card's really impressed me so
Mm-hmm.
far. In the past, discard has been more conditional in Eternal or given your opponent something in return, like Royal Decree, but
Mm-hmm.
Exploit is kind of no questions asked, just get rid of what you want from their hand.
Yep. And Overmaster are going to choose actually there to get their depleted power out to set up their future turns and take a turn off from Exploit. Applechips is going to respond with a Linax here. And in Applechips' hand, they've got Inquisitor's Halberd, a heavy artillery, and a is it Elgin? Is that how you pronounce it? Elgin, Igen? Walking armory
Ejin
here.
is
Egen?
how I've been saying it,
Sounds
but I have
good.
no clue.
Sounds good. Egen walking armory as well. We'll go with that until we're corrected. Fire off the exploit here now on turn 3. Got 2 relic weapons, and you got your
Guess
Egen here.
guess we might see a plunder on something, maybe equalize when you're ahead on cards.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it's a lot worse on the draw. You know, it can get you back on the board, but you don't want to be discarding cards to it, and you want to be hitting your power drops here.
Okay, they're going to take that heavy artillery. We're going to see what Theo chooses for his plunder here. Chooses not to plunder anything, it looks like. It's going to go ahead and
That's,
suffocate.
that's a reasonable choice. You know, maybe uh, there's a lot of power in Theo's deck.
All right. Bartolo's keepsake here. Play that depleted power, follow up with Justice Sigil. Again, not really under a ton of pressure. Going to just keep developing their power base so they can deploy their late game.
And this Egen really isn't that scary right now.
Mm-hmm.
Applechips has now 4 Justice, and uh, a 3/3 isn't going to end the game that quickly on its own.
Mm-hmm. Applechips going to follow up with a Deathwing here, but lots of options in Overmaster's hand. They can take both of those out with Equalize if they want, but then they'd have to discard cards. They also have a couple weapons they can do it, as well as deploying Tavrod or their own Deathwing. So tons of different options for Overmaster. Going
So
to go with the
that
hammer
solves
and
the
take out the Egen. Yep.
that leaves up a Valkyrie though, and that can be kind of a problem when so many cards in Applechips' deck have Valkyrie Warp. I think they
Mm-hmm.
have at least I think it's like wait no 16. Well, Deathwing's one of them, but a lot that
Mm-hmm.
can be warped in.
Mm-hmm. Applechips going to draw an exploit off the top, and they're going to fire that off and see the plethora of options here for Overmaster. They're going to take the Tavrod.
I think the only other option there was uh, maybe the Backbreaker.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Uh, although without another power, it might be correct to just say I can't. You know, I can't beat power into Backbreaker. I'm gonna play around other stuff.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's the power. Here comes the backbreaker. Take out that Deathwing, and then Applechips has the 3/4 weapon on their side, but that's not enough to kill the Overmaster's weapon. It's been a
I'm
while
really
since I've
hoping for a
seen the.
sight here.
It's been a while since I've seen the no units, two weapons going at each other. Not something you see every game.
No, this is like uh the armory days have
Yeah,
passed.
exactly. Well, the Overmaster's got the bigger one, and they're going to take out Applechips' weapon and stick around with a 6-2 weapon, and they're going to play out their Deathwing. So good development, good patience there for Overmaster. One card at a time, but now Applechips is empty-handed, and the Overmaster's got a board.
Applechips wants a know thy enemy or maybe Valkyrie into a sight, warped off the top. It needs something good to go right.
Well, here's a site. They couldn't warp it without a Valkyrie here, but they did draw the site and be able to deploy it here.
Probably just gonna pick I forget what it's called, but it's the Valkyrie Humbug Swarm thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Stayer is beckoning, but they're actually going to go with Curfew Enforcement to shrink down the Deathwing to keep the site alive. Take 6 damage to the face, though. Overmaster just drawing power for the turn.
So I guess what that play is saying, I'm fine taking a little damage. I want Valkyries in play next turn to possibly hit a warp.
Mm-hmm. They draw Silex for the turn, which will give them another look. They do see the Valkyrie warp, as you mentioned, but they're going to replace their current site with it. Go over again. What are they going to choose this time? Another Valkyrie Humbug. Get those 4. So 4 Valkyries now for Applechips. Of course, the Overmaster can take care of one of them with their weapon.
And then
Could
they get to
also
play
they could also
another
fire off the
spell.
Equalize too if they wanted here. Take out 3 of those Valkyrie. And there's the Curfew Enforcement. That's going to knock Deathwing down. And an Aijin off that treasure trove there.
Probably just playing the Equalized here. I don't know how much better it's gonna. Well, depends how much Theo values that relic weapon. If he wants it to stick around, then he's firing off the Equalize. If he thinks he can uh, go over what Applechips is doing, then he's gonna probably not fire it off. Or could also suffocate first and just get rid of those last 2 cards in hand. But
Mm-hmm.
then you're still not really ahead on board, and that Rhoda's coming out soon.
Silex is the draw for Applechips. You're going to play the Oath off the site to turn one of those Valkyries into a 5/5. Draw power off the treasure trove. Well, this should take out the weapon.
Yeah, Theo doesn't have a ton left to work with.
Yeah, that'll give Applechips a breath of fresh air for sure. The Deathwing with negative power, of course, can't kill those Valkyries. Can only stop one, so that's going to knock the backbreaker down. And then just adjust a symbol off the top here. So no more action in Overmaster's hand. They've got the Equalize and the Suffocate if they need to, but unfortunately haven't seen that Roland or anything else that they need to put some pressure on here. And now that sight's going to go off and give Applechips that 6/6 and flying endurance. They're followed up with another sight warped off the top thanks to those Valkyries. It was very fortunate for Applechips there. They also have a Deathwing sitting on top as well. So you had mentioned a couple minutes ago about needing those Valkyries out for that warp value, and Applechips has gotten, I think, 3 times now they've gotten to warp here in the last few turns.
Yeah, that curfew enforcement. Oh wait, no, they get 2 spells. That's why. I was gonna say they're playing around Equalize here, but I guess they're. not.
Well, there's the Roland. A turn or two too late, but we'll see if that can still. Now you can play Roland and then equalize. Get a couple Valkyries for your trouble.
You can suffocate your own Deathwing here
Mm-hmm.
uh, to trade it in for a 1/1 deadly.
Mm-hmm. Is it only enemy unit? I guess, yeah, you're right, because you could, yeah, you're basically sacking that to equalize to get one more unit dead. It's probably a good trade for Overmaster to do that.
I don't think you can wait any longer on this. Like, waiting for the next Rhoda, you're taking how much? Uh, 7 plus 6, 13. Yeah, you can't wait. Oh,
Okay. That was the Overmaster passing back, so we decided to wait a turn there. Another Ironclad Oath is going to go 5/5 on another Valkyrie and then going to warp off the top to get another 2/3 in play. It's a lot of damage coming through. Going to put Overmaster down to 5. And is Applechips going to follow up with a Aegean or a Tavrod? Nope, they're just going to hold those in hand here.
does Theo have enough to play every? Yes, he has enough because he can plunder the suffocate.
Mm-hmm.
And Applechips is going to be left with a Rhoda, but Theo is going to have an army of deadly Valkyries.
Mm-hmm. It was a bold move last turn for Theo to wait one more turn, have Applechips deploy, but they took a lot of damage to doing so. That was a big risk, but we're going to start off with this exploit here. And it's going to be a pretty big shift, but.
Yeah, that was an interesting play. Like, if the Rhoda would have been coming out this turn,
Mm-hmm.
I think waiting was definitely going to be right. But the only thing that changes is Applechips is one turn closer to Rhoda, and Theo didn't really do anything except take a bunch of damage.
Mm-hmm. All right, there you go. There's the rolling into the equalize. That'll leave Applechips with one unit and give Overmaster an army of deadly Valkyrie flyers. And discard their hand. Pretty good turn of events there for Overmaster, but that side is going to go off and get another 6/6 flyer, another Rhoda here.
Yeah, and so what?
Ooh, speaking circle off the top for Overmaster. Great draw there.
Yeah, this is uh, how it's expected to go. You know, when you're playing 8 sites in your deck and it's a long game and your opponent is only playing 4, uh, kind of an uphill battle to fight through that.
Mm-hmm. All right, now we see cards flash up here on the screen, but from spectator mode, I can't guarantee that those are the options, but it looks like Retribution and Training Ground are what's popped up so far. And then a Rapid Shot. So it looks like we've got Rapid Shot, Training Ground, Retribution as the three as the three on the agenda.
I wonder what the other choices were because those uh, those don't seem like ones I'd be. Well, Retribution is nice, but the other two aren't ones I'd be happy to be playing.
All right, gonna fire off the Rapid Shot first on Roland. And then notably, this does say that the enemy cannot have sights. So in case you didn't see that interaction, by playing that sight, the Overmaster knocked out Applechips' sight. That's what happened there. All right, Ijin off the top here. Another
Those
speaking
Rotas,
circle.
they haven't drawn a single card yet for Applechips.
They have not. All right, the Retribution. Going to silence and stun one of those Rotas. And then do you just deploy out the other speaking circle to get another spell? No. Overmaster's just going to go to attacks here.
No, like you're getting the Queen of Glass in 2 turns.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I don't see how Applechips answers this site.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you just let it go through its agenda.
Oh, and that's just going to be it. Applechips is going to die. That Roland's too big, and those flyers are too big. So it paid off. That play that Overmaster made there. It's a wait a turn, fire off that Roland, and that equalize. Huge play. We talked about equalize a minute ago. That card very powerful in that game. Pretty much turned that entire game around there. So well played by Overmaster to be patient, and they're going to take that one 2-0.